partnerships ensure that the research is relevant, that it's timely. It ensures that the research is critical and essential for dealing with core local, national, and global public health problems. And so I say community partnership is essential because it allows for a perspective, a lived experience to really inform the work that we do. Because in many cases in academic institutions, we have one way of framing things or approaching work that sometimes can miss the mark or that sometimes has a gap. And so if we're thinking about, collaboration, influencing community health, population health at the local, national, and global level, it's critical that those who are closest to the issue are also part of the solution and are at the table.
The idea is to try to work together with the community at different stages of the research. So at the very beginning, it would be interviewing them, for example, to learn about their needs. At a different stage, it could be talking to them to see what barriers they may have to a specific study design or to a specific intervention. They could also suggest characteristics of how that intervention should work in order to be satisfactory for that community or to work better or more accessible. And obviously also have them participate in trials or the research studies themselves. But it's basically involving the community at every stage of the research design. I particularly work with the Latino population with dementia. And so this is a community that is traditionally underserved, and they had a higher risk of Alzheimer's and other dementias, and many disparities related to them. One very interesting thing is that we don't know anything about Latinos and Down syndrome and how it relates to dementia. So that's my role here, is trying to help include the Latino community to learn more about how Down syndrome and dementia interact.
But John was the senior barber in the very first barbershop, Willie T's barbershop in Homewood, that I partnered with. Mr. Willie T was very unique because he didn't know me. I'm from the Hill District. Mr. Ham's barbershop is where I got my first haircut at as a little boy. So I had history that I can connect to him. Mr. Willie T, I would go to the shop. I would be there when they opened. Had a hard time getting to see him. He would tell me to sit. I would sit forever and never get to, then he would say he had to go somewhere. So one day he did actually stop and say, listen, you want to talk to me? I get here at 5:30 in the morning to open the shop and get the shop ready. The shop didn't open until 8, right? But he said, you need to be here, meet me when I get here. So sure enough, I got there when Mr. Willie T was there to open the shop. And just by meeting him, being there when he said be there, we had a quick conversation. I gave him my pitch, and he said, I've been telling people around here that we need to do this forever. It's about time somebody said this. We're in. And he made sure all of his barbers in his shop got trained in CPR. He was the first one to be able to allowed us to bring health professionals in to do blood pressures. He became our number one advocate for doing the things that we were trying to do in the barbershop. But it was a matter of showing up and showing that I meant what I said and that I was willing to go to any lengths to have a relationship with him. But the way that you do it is to build the relationships ahead of time.
Engaging community is extremely important because the fact that even though that I'm from Puerto Rico, that I speak Spanish, that alone is not enough. You need people in there that who's going to open the door. They're going to help you to keep the door open so you can make the connection with the families and the participants. So being honest with them, being transparent with them, and explaining the difficult term in terms that they can understand, because if they can understand it, they can help with the recruitment process. And some of these organizations, they respond to a board, so they can bring this information to the board, and if they buy in, they will be your biggest supporter. So, but you need to be honest and transparent with them.
Because as researchers, we tend to publish scientific papers that are often highly technical and dense, and that information doesn't trickle down to the community, or it gets synthesized in a way on a news station where it's a soundbite, and it's not entirely clear how important or not important that should be to the community. We've tried to modify this by having our researchers go into the community as frequently as possible to talk about our findings and to give back information that we've found from our research studies, and really highlighting the idea that sometimes this information and these scientific breakthroughs can come from just one individual. In the case of things like brain donation, often information from one individual's brain will tell us all sorts of things about Alzheimer's disease and risk for Alzheimer's disease. We often try also to provide as many results as possible back to our research participants in a way that's meaningful to them. So again, researchers tend to have spreadsheets full of dense data that's very hard to interpret. And so one of the things that we're working very hard to do is to take that information and contextualize it in a way where research participants can use it in a meaningful way.
Well, I mean, community voice is critical and important, right? In my mind, and what I've learned over the years is if you continue to make things for people and not have their voice included, guess what happens? It doesn't work. Opening up that door, creating that space where you're really willing to learn about the community culture and the people who live in the community, that's what's going to bring about any kind of change. That's the first thing that you have to do. Secondly, let people tell their stories. Stories are so important, right? You can get a lot of information as a researcher by hearing somebody's stories. But again, you have to be willing to set aside that time to be able to get that story, to be able to hear and process what the person is saying to you, not just what you want to take from the conversation. It's all about relationship building, which is critically important for anything to work.